Are we having a party here? I don't know.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business. Well. Here I am on camera with Ed Selkow and Sharon Cowan.
Yes.
You bet, yeah. I never knew.
Lifetime member.
Perfect. One of the few, I might add, of women who have CBSEs. That's how to be a CAI for those of you who aren't familiar with the program. Well, we have a very interesting and challenging topic today. And it is turning your failures into fortunes. Nobody likes to fail. Everybody does fail. And everybody usually fails more than they'd like. But how do you, will you turn your failures into fortunes? That's what we want to talk a bit about today. With 150 years of experience, we've had plenty of failures, but between the 3 of us and running businesses collectively for those 150 years, we've lost millions of dollars in revenue, probably tens of millions over all that time, and probably millions of dollars of profit. But we're still here, we're still smiling, and things are still going along. So what is the secret of turning failures into fortunes? So Sharon, since you picked the topic, you get to go first.
Oh, good. Lucky me.
Lucky you.
So I think the key takeaway from this kind of broadcast is that we have to look at failures, not as failures, but as opportunities to learn. And failures will always lead you to a more successful, productive time in your business when you look at it as an opportunity to learn from it. By analyzing, first of all, what happened, what went wrong, what could I have done differently, what would I do in the same situation next time, and what's going to be my process so this kind of thing doesn't happen again. What do I need to change in my business? And if you can learn from those elements, the failure isn't really a failure. It's a learning tool. And I think that the thing you have to step back at the 40,000 view and look at your ultimate goals and realize that this failure is not going to make or break your business. It's a bump in the road. Learn from it and move on and keep going.
I think that enters into it, picking your battles. Because
Yeah.
there's major failures, and then there are, medium failures, and then minor failures. And it's like, okay, all right. So that's, by the way, this was a senior vice president of Montgomery Wards. And what he said was, look, everybody's finger pokes through the toilet paper every once in a while.
Okay. Graphic, but good example.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Everybody's finger pokes through the toilet paper once in a while.
So there's big ones and little ones, and I think that I'm real thankful for, and I've talked about this over and over, but I'm real thankful for that time management course that I took that said, look, you can't do time management unless you got life management going, and you had to assemble your goals from your deathbed. And that was an awful lot of help. As a matter of fact, that was why I quit Redcoats. I figured out on my deathbed, I want to be dad. That's what I want.
I had plenty of failures starting out, as we all did. Sharon probably skirted a few of those because she came with a lot of business experience and background. Unfortunately, Ed and I, like a couple of lost cows in a field, had to figure a whole lot of stuff out because we didn't have the background someone like Sharon had coming in. We had to figure out how to manage stuff. And yeah, we had classes and all that stuff. But anybody that's been through school, no knock on school. What you learn there and what you have to do when somebody hands you a company or on your own are 2 different things. And probably my guess would be half of what you learned actually works in a real life situation.
Think about what a problem addiction is in our business.
Yeah.
And how does that start?
Well, particularly with the risky trades like the window cleaner.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm not picking on a window community, but I was in this for 40 years, 50 years as you guys were. And it's, drunk or pot. It's one of the two. And you have to deal with it. The thing that caught me with failures early on, there was a book out. Well, I hate to date myself. Tom Peters with McKinsey and Company came out with In Search of Excellence. And then he came out. Get a chance, go out to Tom Peters' site. He's still writing, and I still use some of his material and working with my client. But he said, if you want to be successful, you have to fail forward fast. FQ. The simple principle was the more mistakes you make, the more you learn what not to do. If you take Ed's advice and Sharon and you go back and look at it and take the time to learn what caused it, and you work on fixing that, you will learn how to minimize it. You may not eliminate it, but you'll learn how to make the next one a lot less impactful. But you have to be willing to fail, and you have to say it's just all part of the deal. And if you look at life in general, running a business is no different. If you have a hobby you're good at, if you have anything that you do, you failed when you started, and you failed when you were great at it. The failures are what tell us where we need to make our improvement. I lost a third of my business one time on one cancellation. But I didn't know that or didn't listen to it. And by God, I'll tell you after that, I paid real close attention to how much of my business, man, when that needle went over 10%, we slowed down in a hurry to make sure that nobody got over 10% of our business from the balance of that, probably the last 20, 25 years of the business. It's just part of living. Everything we do, driving a car, we don't do anything without failing. And I think we need to reframe how we look at it. You know, Sharon, you had another word for it. It's an opportunity to learn. So a lot of it is mental. Did we fail? Well, the other saying is failure is never final. Unless it's your deathbed, as Ed was talking about. And that's not failure. That's just a transition from one dimension to another, to leave it at that for right now. So you have to be, it's what you do with it. And Ed, when you ran into failure, what did you do with it? You know, let's say you lost a large account. And you and I have known each other for 15 years.
I did that. And what I did was we had really nice offices and great warehouse, and we had sinks. It was wonderful, and I loved it. But when I lost that account, I moved. And I moved into an office complex. It was one of my clients, you know. And so we went from 1,500 square feet, down to about 25. And so
Were you in the broom closet?
I had somebody working in the office, and I had to let her go, you know. So my wife at that time, you know, she stepped up to the pump, and the best thing that we could think about was that the place was so small that we weren't able to actually pass each other between the desks. And it was, you know, and I said, well, look, I said, let's do it this way. I said, you know, listen, you sue me, for sexual harassment. No, what was the turnaround part of that was we did just fine. And I learned about how much I didn't need, and never again did I have overhead stuff like that. What was funny was that I've seen that a number of times, though, where people have this crazy overhead situation. It's like, well, what you got this office looking like? I mean, are we shooting movies in here, or what are we doing here? Well, listen, what we're doing here is we're getting yelled at because the trash can got missed. Okay. How fancy does it have to be?
How about you, Sharon?
I had an experience early on because I was new to the industry, and it taught me a huge lesson. It was a great learning opportunity. And this was a lesson in my processes, my service delivery, my supervision. And it happened on a brand new, huge account, one of my largest that I had, that I worked really hard to get. And we were cleaning the vice president of a bank's office. We started the first night. I didn't go to the process. I didn't have proper supervision in place. I sent the cleaners in there to clean. You know, I'm only about 6 months into the industry. So I'm, in my mind, they're going to do what I tell them to do.
Of course.
So I called my customer, the bank vice president, the next morning, and I said, "How did everything go last night?" And his famous words to me, which are emblazoned in my brain, were, "Sharon, it's your business to know how things went last night. It's not my business to know that. You need to be the one that knows, and you tell me." So that was one of the first largest eye openers I had in my entire time in this industry. And it's never left me. It was a lesson I learned from it. He really set me back on my feet. And I said, what did I do? What did I miss? I missed supervision. I missed the training. I missed the ability to deliver the service that I sold to him and that he was expecting. And all of that was for me to know. So I believe I can tell you honestly, I knew that about all my new accounts going forward. I knew everything I had to know about them. And I had the training down. I had the supervision down. I learned lessons that stayed with me the entire time I had my career. So that was a learning experience for me.
Yeah, one of the things I learned working for a big company was the objective on the first night is to have 0 complaints the next morning.
Yes.
Because I mean, everybody screws up in the beginning, and that's why it's so hard for them to change services. It's a big pain in the neck for them. They got to go through all of the complaints and, the keys and the alarm nonsense and, missed offices and, all that stuff.
And if you can't get it right the first night, you're swimming uphill the rest of the time, trying to stay and get in the good graces of your customer and trying to keep things on an even keel.
Well, no matter how many trash cans you miss, you're probably still a lovely human being. So
You're only as good as the trash can you didn't miss.
Yes.
Well, I'm sitting here listening to you guys, and so many things are flooding through when you think of failure isn't final. You must be tough. You have to take the good with the bad if you're going to run your own business. And the other thing is financial failure. We're talking about cleaning failure, but let's open up that can of worms for a moment. Financial failure. Because that's, you can lose an account and survive unless it's all your business, and you can get by. You're going to have a chance to rebound with the client unless it's your 1,800th mistake. But when you look at that financial statement and you get that big surprise that the cash flow doesn't equal the profit line. In other words, I'm showing great profit and there's Zippo in the tank to pay the bills, or I'm short on payroll and I have to use my line of credit. Those are big failures that get by early on operating, keeping an eye on those things. And I can probably speak to it as almost as much as anybody because I've had some huge failures in that, very huge. I had $1.5 million debt I took on because of a failure of mine to get rid of some people and issues in my company and take it over that were other partners. You're not taking care of your herd. I wasn't reviewing financials the way I should. I was letting things slip. We weren't on top of overtime. I can go on and on. All the deadly sins of financial management and analysis. And there I sat. And it all got back to training, telling people what to do, people having a clear path of their responsibilities, knowing when they are and aren't off target. We were talking about that, evaluation as well as process. And all of a sudden we changed and we did a 180.
Just before you collapse.
Yeah. Well, that's 720 when you go around that time and a half or whatever. But it's how you respond to things. And like I said, defeat, it's the difference between a battle and a war. You're going to lose the battles as long as you stay in there for as long as you want to wage the war. You can live to fight another day, but that is your mindset. And if you're on top of your business, which means you have processes, procedures, you have a way of managing those things and fixing them faster. And the quicker you can fix them. And I'm not talking about putting a Band-Aid on. When I say fix something, I'm not saying go in and clean up your mess the night before or go in and clean up your financials and then let them get back to where they were.
Mhm.
The fixes have to stop the bleeding. And you have to sit down and be willing to figure out what to do with that.
Mhm. Mhm. And I spent several, not years, maybe time period there in my business where I was so driven by the sales. That's the background I had come from, was the sales to the profit. I didn't pay attention to my financials, which is now why that has become such a hot point for me. And that is just a real key button, is the numbers, knowing them, because I really got into trouble for a while there because it was the sale. We just got the sale. We didn't look at the profit. I didn't, until I finally woke up and said, whoa, I've got all this revenue coming in. I'm not making any money. I'm not bidding correctly. One of my 3 months into owning the company, I knew squat, nothing. And I had an opportunity to bid a school and build a huge multi-story real estate sales office. I bid both of them. I won both of them. And after I woke up to the fact that I wasn't making any money on them, I saw why I won both of them. My price was so off. I got out of the one. I just gave them a 30-day. I said, I can't do this. They weren't willing to renegotiate. I renegotiated with the other one, but not knowing my numbers. And the only excuse I have was I was 3 months into the business. I hadn't been to a convention yet. I hadn't learned anything. So, but being aware, and those were huge mistakes that I recovered from. But again, it was a learning lesson. You got to know the numbers. You got to know how they work. Forget all the software and all the bidding and estimating software. You still have to know how to do it and what those numbers mean.
Well, that was covered. I got that when I worked for a big company, and I heard over and over again, employees and clients.
Right.
We live and die by a budget, period. That's it. So.
It takes a few revs to learn that one, though. And if the people that have been in the industry that open their own business definitely have an edge because they've learned that on somebody else's dime, running a business for somebody. We had to learn it on our dime that you take forward. I think it's a matter of perspective. I think we have to take personal responsibility. Do we own this? I said I wasn't looking at the financials. I was trusting somebody else to do it. I wasn't validating anything. Did I fail in that aspect? I failed, but is the company in trouble? Is this final? Are we going to bounce back from this? Well, we've all I did it 40 years, and I can't tell you how many times I was up and down on the roller coaster with things coming in and out of the business. And personally, how do we take it personally? What do we do with the fail? Do we learn? And again, we can say learn from them, but what do you take away? And it isn't just learn. You can learn something, but do you change what you're doing? It's great. I learned a lesson. I didn't look at my financials. Well, if I don't change what I'm doing, I didn't learn a damn thing.
Right.
So there has to be after action and intentional improvement of what you're doing as the business owner. And again, you have the final say. You run the processes, the people, the training, you hold them accountable. I don't care what level they are. If you've got a 10,000 person company, the guy at the top still has people under him managing people under them, and so on and so forth. And you have to be willing to take personal responsibility and say, yep, I screwed it up. If you want to avoid and limit, again, the severity of failure, because there's all levels. I think we have to keep that in mind. There's all levels of failure, small, medium, and large. But will you accept the personal responsibility to fix it? And a lot of people sometimes lack the fortitude, I would say, or self-discipline to say, I own this. Where did I screw up and how do I fix this? Because at the end of the day, you're the only person that can turn the company. The company's going to follow you. What the company looks like and does is a direct reflection of the owner. At the end of the day, you're responsible. So you fail. Don't fail again, but you have to take after action, and you have to watch yourself. And you have to put things in place that improve it. And, you talked about training earlier. Let's move from finances back to service delivery. The worst thing you can do is skip training. We had a week of it. and it had varying things. We also started on large accounts 150% of what was budgeted the first week. I mean, because you don't know who's going to come, who's going to leave, who's going to like it, other than the people you bring in as your foundation from other accounts to work with. You have to look at these things. Did I start out doing that? No. I learned it by not having enough people in the job and 30% walking out the first night. And what do? You learn and you change. And did it cost money? Yeah, it costs money, but how much money does it cost? And this should be a whole nother topic. What is the cost of failing to train and hold people accountable costing you? Because if you look at the real cost of this business where our profit gets chewed up, it's in overtime, it's in failure to train. You know, God rest his soul, my dad used to say, hey, if you have enough time to do it, to go back and do it, you had enough time to do it right the first time. And we spend most of our money fixing problems. Somebody didn't clean something. Now, I'm not going to get into the 5 whys and backstep analysis, but where's it broken? What happened? Because if you don't get that fixed, you're never going to get on a real good foot for that. And again, I don't care what level it is, the cleaner, the floor guy, the window person, the supervisor, the assistant manager, the operations manager. If they aren't clear on their responsibilities, tasks, outcomes, and metrics and what they're to produce and how they affect one another, the majority of your time and your money loss is in handling complaints up and down your chain of command.
No, it's true.
And
Yeah.
those are losses.
And
And those are failures that kind of,
like you said, fixing things. You're not doing any forward movement of the company, growing, selling, getting out, getting new business. You're spending time cleaning up messes from current business. I had one incident where I had a post-construction cleanup job. And again, this is early on in the career, one of my first post-construction cleanups. And I didn't have correct, proper, well-trained supervision in place on that job. And the cleaners that I had scratched windows of a set of French doors. And that was a long time ago, 30 years ago or so. A set of French doors was maybe $400. $400 back in the late 90s, mid 90s, was a lot of money for me to have to replace. And my insurance wouldn't cover it because it was care and custody of that product. We screwed it up. It wasn't covered. My analysis of the situation was I didn't have a properly trained supervisor in place watching, guiding, supervising these people. A couple of newbies went at the windows with razor blades, scratches all over the window. I changed the system. I changed the procedure of training. I personally took charge when we were small enough then that I could do that. So I took charge of overseeing the training of that supervisor and making sure on our post-construction, they knew exactly what to do. And we didn't have that kind of problem again. So we fixed the process. We fixed what we did and learned from that $400 mistake.
and I think to that point, the only thing I'd add is if you don't fix that process, if you don't fix those procedures, failure can become final. If you don't fix the process and the procedures and you keep repeating the mistake, it can become final because it's exponential. It's not just at that account. It's how you're doing business and it spreads through the whole organization.
Yes. Then it's not a mistake. So you repeat the error over and over and over, and you lose a lot of money doing it.
It's kind of like getting married for the 6th time in Las Vegas.
That's true.
So what is the common denominator here since I'm getting married the 6th time?
Yeah.
I'll let the audience do the math on that. I think we've kind of covered the subject. Failures are frustrating, but they can be turned into fortunes, to turn a phrase there. It's up to you to take the time to look at it. My thought is, how many times had I sat down and analyzed something, looked at it, fixed it, and then put it back into the system? I would not have had a lot of the problems and business loss and grief and lonely nights laying awake at the ceiling wondering, how do I replace this? Had I taken the time. I get a lot of this, and I know you guys do coaching. I don't have time to do that. You don't understand. I've got to get people in here. We have to do this. I'm short staffed. We don't have time to
Mhm.
train. You guys, you're all nodding your head. We hear
Yeah.
this constantly. And my
Yeah.
comment is, you better make time, because if you have time to go back, I could guarantee you have time to do it again. If you
Mhm.
have 20 hours of complaint resolution to get something unscrewed, you had 2 hours to do it right the first time. So don't hurl and hide. Don't point out there and say it's these people, those people. You own your business, take control of it and fix it. Sharon, you get the last word.
I think that as we're talking, and I'm trying to, what are some of the foundational things to walk away with? And one of the biggest ones is going ahead and getting back up every time you get knocked down.
Mhm.
It's the same as in the schoolyard. If you stay down, you lost.
Mhm.
If you get up, you got a shot at least. So
Yeah, that's good.
Last word over to you, Sharon.
I would say to use it as a learning opportunity. Every mistake has a reason for happening. And when you analyze it, come up with a plan to fix it so that it doesn't happen again. So use it as a learning opportunity.
So with
agreed.
that, we're going to say adios, turn your failures into fortunes, take a hard look at why it happened, what you can do to keep it from happening again, and then blend that into your processes and your procedures. And remember, you can find us all over on Spotify, YouTube, and ours is the Polishing Profits podcast. With all of that, we'll wish you well until the next time. Again, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you're going to pick up a podcast, we're there. You can get it on all the major channels. I highly suggest you go out to YouTube. They are all arranged by subject and topic. So if you're looking for a particular topic, you don't have to guess.
Yeah.
Our manager's done a really good job with that. So if you really want to know, you can at least see exactly how they're categorized. Thanks for joining us.